In the first novel of C.S. Lewis's classic science fiction trilogy, Dr. Ransom, a Cambridge academic, is abducted and taken on a spaceship to the red planet of Malacandra. His captors are plotting to plunder the planet's treasures and plan to offer ransom as a sacrifice to the creatures who live there. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lysium. I am your host Liam, aka Hemvar, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of C.S. Lewis's Out of the Silent Planet. Out of the Silent Planet is the first in the space trilogy by C.S. Lewis, though it is also called the Cosmic Trilogy, and it is a type of Christian science fiction, and is kind of interesting as it was actually, I don't know if it was a bet, but Tolkien, who was a big friend of C.S. Lewis, and he is the author of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, of course, had made a deal with Lewis to both write sci-fis, and Lewis's was supposed to be a space journey, and Tolkien's was supposed to be a time travel story, which was never finished, though I believe you can read some notes of it in some volume somewhere. Now anyways, this is the first volume, and it is about a man named Elwyn Ransom, which also has a similarity to an earlier Tolkien character who doesn't really appear much, or maybe even at all, in like official Middle-earth legendarium, because Dr. Ransom is our main character, and his first name is Elwyn, which is also the name of Alfwina, who is the elf friend in early, again, Tolkien's legendarium stuff, specifically if you read The Lost Road. Now, Dr. Ransom is a philologist, which is sort of a historian on languages, to keep it short, and so is Tolkien. The character also does seem to be based off of Lewis himself somewhat, and Charles Williams, who is also a fellow Inkling with the other two. Now, Lewis actually does appear in the story too. Now, this is some weird stuff I'm not really talking about, but I kind of went over it at the introduction, that Ransom is abducted, and that's really what the story is about. It's really, really, really short. Now, if you look at like the audiobook version, it's like 5 hours. It starts in England, and a middle-aged academic, again, Ransom, who works at Cambridge, is abducted and taken to Malacandra. And I don't want to spoil what planet that is, but it is in our solar system, and though some other blurbs do spoil what this is. Now, there are other characters such as Divine and Weston, and they're somewhat of the opposition, and like I said, this is theological, and so they're basically evolutionist, while Ransom is the thoughtful Christian, though he does get a lot of the action in this book as discussion. The climax of this book is a discussion, and it's actually pretty well done, but this book has very, very little action in it. The world building is very intriguing, probably was more interesting at the time this came out in the 30s, but still it does hold up pretty well, and it made me somewhat think of A Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs, which is the John Carter series, or Barsoom books. And the world building is done really quickly. The focus, again, is religious of sorts. We do get some space travel, which is pretty interesting, and we do also have space, Ransom thinks about it, and he would rather call space the heavens, which is pretty interesting, which honestly makes me think that this would be better called as the Cosmic Trilogy, which is a name for it, but it is more generally called the Space Trilogy. Now, this did seem kind of like a prologue, and Paralandra is the next book, which is somewhat longer in that his strength is about double the length of Paralandra, and I do plan on getting to those. And it's pretty interesting why we have this Earth that is called the Silent Planet, and really what's going on in the cosmos as we talk to the different races on Malacandra, and the gods, essentially, of Malacandra as well. And it is interesting. It's firmly set in our world, as there are mentions to Paradise Lost, which of course at this time would have been several hundred years old anyways, but also mentioning like H.G. Wells, which is earlier science fiction, I thought was a little interesting, since you don't see a lot of that, I feel like, in sci-fi today. Anyways, those are my quick thoughts. I do hope to get to the next two books, since it's not a very big series, and this is my first fiction I've read by C.S. Lewis, for those curious. Now, this has been Liam's Lysium. If you want to talk more, I do have a Discord. I'll link that down below. I talk about books there, of course, and I do reviews generally every Monday and Friday, so stick around for those. Anyway, and I do poetry videos on Thursday, and then other videos on Wednesdays and Saturdays if I get all the time that it's kind of hard to find. Anyways, thanks for watching.